Hi, I'm Jerry Job, and this tutorial is on using the new Style Toon feature in iColorama. It's an AI that works best on faces, and it will choose a face to use. So what happens, I'm going to show you what happens when you try and use it on more than one face, or when you try and use it on something that's larger than a single face, a full figure or whatever. When you run Style Toon, it chooses one of the faces in the image and does the toonification of that image. Down in the lower right is a button that allows you to switch to an overall version, and you can see that the faces aren't very good at this point. So how do we get it to do it, to have the best possible version on the faces itself? Well, what I do is I save off each face. And how do I get it to choose the other face in order to save that off and blend it in later? Well, I crop it down to the other face, in this case the brunette, apply the crop, and then I'll run Style Toon on it. The only thing it can choose is that face at that point, so I save that off. Now I'm able to go back in history to the original image, run Style Toon on it, and get the full version, and then use Effect Blend to blend the faces back in to replace the blurred and dodgy faces that we have here. So I've applied it. I go into Effects Blend, pull up the brunette's face first, and squeeze it down to an approximation. I lower the opacity so I can see where I'm placing it. And I'll even zoom in to make the process easier. It can be difficult to line these up. They're drawn in two different styles. So sometimes the lines on the edge of the face, on the edge of the dress, whatever, do not line up as much as you might think they would, seeing as they're both run against the same thing. But once I have it in place and the correct size, then what I'm going to do is bring the opacity back up. Then I'll bring in a brush mask, invert the brush mask to hide the new face, and then I'll paint the new face in. So I know I'm not going to be able to get everything. So I try and get the most important features of the face brought in. I zoom back out and I see that's great, and I'm going to apply that, but it's brighter than the surrounding image. So while the mask is still in place, I'll go to Adjust Exposure and lower the brightness until it's more in line with the overall picture. When I'm happy, I apply that, I remove the mask, and I start with the other face. I'll do Effect Blend, and I'll pull up the redhead's face, squeeze it down, place it, lower the opacity to help me place it, and then zoom in and finagle this one around until it's more in line with what I want. Fits it more completely. This is both the most important portion of this and the most tedious. Because you don't have a button that says Fit to Face. I'll zoom back out here because it looks like I may have made her face a little bit too large, but Okay, so I zoom back I raise the opacity, bring up the brush mask, invert the brush mask, and paint in the face and the ponytail as well because it had detail that I wanted. Once again, you can see as I'm painting in that it's brighter than the surrounding area. So once I'm happy with what I've got and I apply this, once again, I'll leave the mask in place. Yes, well, and if you paint too far and you get a little bit of the white edge, then you can use erase and paint it back out. So anyway, I'm happy with what I've got, and I'll leave the mask in place and lower the brightness under Adjust Exposure, and there's my image. And I think that's pretty good. There are many things you can do afterwards. You can take it into Style Water and make a watercolor out of it. You can take it into MetaBrush and paint it. But if you're happy with what you've got here, a couple of suggestions is to do an Adjust High 3. And it really sharpens it up and makes it look like a mid-century illustration. I also want the shadows to be brought up some, so I'll go into Adjust Shadows 3 and bring up the shadows. Now there are other things you can do, such as including a painted paper. If this was painted on paper or drawn onto paper, then you would choose a paper so that part of the image, at least, you wouldn't have to draw it in. So I choose the skin color here as my paper color. And then I'm going to take a mask, put a mask on this, paint a mask on it using a paintbrush type brush tip. So it gives me not a smooth edge like the normal masking brush would do. But it does bring in a lot of these messy edges. So what I'll have to do is go back to the standard soft brush and clear those edges out. And so I'll go around here and I will clear out that messy stuff on the top of the image. Now, if you're going to add paper texture to your paper, then you should do it after painting in this gradient, this paper color around the edges. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking a paper texture. I'll take it all the way down to nothing and then bring it back in just 10%, 10 to 15% tops. That's a good look also. But what if you wanted it to be more like an ink wash? Then you might want to go into one of the black and white settings and adjust the gamma and the contrast. And it will be more like an ink wash image instead. So that's a look at Style Toon in iColorama. Until next time, enjoy.